Hey, are you guys all worried? You worried about your new Ackie monitor that you just got? Or you keep them really precisely, you keep their temperature to a T, you keep their humidity on level? Well, my buddy Professor Herp here, he's going to tell you a little bit about how you don't need to do that, because Ackie monitors, they're already animals, guys. They're already animals.
Hey guys, how's it going? You know, it's the beginning of a new year. I'll be completely bald. Yellow Ackie, Reptile. Hey guys, I think that was a cross between like Morty and some character from Sesame Street right there. I don't know. I'm just having fun with myself in the reptile room today, and I wanted to talk to you guys about Ackie monitors and how they're truly hardy, and something I've come to learn over my years of caring for them, from being a rookie, being really concerned about having really precise temperature, humidity levels, all that jazz, and how you really don't need all that stuff, and really how they can exist in such a wide range of environments. So let's talk about some of the things I've been learning, guys, about Ackie monitors.
Even as a little innocent baby, you really don't need to be super precise with their numbers. And that's easy for me to say because I developed intuition for these guys, being that I've been caring for them so long. But if I'm a rookie or someone who's worried, what I take away is that if they're not hitting the precise numbers I want to hit in terms of your humidity and basking temp and all that, then these guys, they're not going to swing downwards really quick health-wise. They can survive a bunch of temperature and humidity ranges, and that's really good for you worrywarts out there. In fact, I can't tell you the last time I've actually measured this basking spot temperature here. And that's because after all these years, I really kind of have a feel for what these guys as babies want, and just generally what Ackies want. I know that there's multiple basking spots here. There's one there, there's one there. I know roughly what that wattage bulb can hit from that distance and how this mesh here affects it. And to be honest, the main reason I don't check it is because it's hard to get an IR gun through the mesh there to get an accurate reading. So I just really have that feel for it, but ultimately what that tells me is I don't need to be super precise, and these guys have been thriving. My past collections that I've done this for have thrived. I've guesstimated humidity, the amount of moisture I put in here. This is really how these guys survive. And honestly, I'm starting to think the best way to keep Ackies is to fluctuate temperature and humidity levels quite a bit. And by quite a bit, I mean in terms of your typical reptile. For commonly kept reptiles at least, it's generally accepted that you want to hit specific numbers for various husbandry elements, something to be found ideal after years and years of observation for that species. Now, this same idea can probably easily be applied for Ackies and is already being applied for the generations we've been keeping them. But what I have proposed, is that we need to fluctuate things more. We need to have them be in different environments and focus on that as a permanent trait of their husbandry, because that's what they have to deal with out in the wild. And I think one argument to this that's kind of led down this specificness of having these numbers is that in captivity we can have things be more ideal, and I agree with that, but we can have that too with fluctuation, because fluctuation is ideal for these reptiles. So I guess what you could say here is, while I am talking about Ackies today, I think this is something that should be more standard in the husbandries of all reptiles in general, but we're going to be focusing on Ackie monitors today because that's my cup of tea. Now, what has led me to this observation for Ackies? Well, being that I have multiple Ackies and multiple enclosures, I've been experimenting with different basking temperatures, because the feasibility of hitting 150, 160, which is recommended on the upper spectrum of basking temperatures, is not always, like I said, feasible for everybody. People in my DMs struggle to hit those numbers, and that kind of made me inquire on whether this is necessary for them to thrive and it is an optimal basking temperature. So what I'm going to do is show you kind of the ranges of my 3 enclosures I have for Ackies and show what they're at. So for example, LG right now has a basking temperature just above, I believe I measured a second ago, just above 110. So you saw like 115 there. And that is way below what I typically keep them at, and the low range of what people typically keep them at, which is about 130. For the 2 Hendricks, we have a basking temperature hitting in the upper 140s today, about 150. This was actually probably a good 10 degrees lower before this morning, because that right bulb there went out and I put a fresh one in, so that knocks it up about 10 degrees, I guess. So that's about 150 right now. And last but not least, we have Dell. Dell is probably sitting at around 125. Yeah, there we go. Low 120s. I think the max you'll probably get, yeah, right about 125, a little over. So you can see quite a range in temperatures. Now, experimenting with these different ranges has been something I've been doing for the last several months, just before I stopped making videos. And not only have I been doing different ranges in each of these enclosures and comparing them, I've been fluctuating these ranges in each enclosure. And no, this is not a really hardcore study, I guess you could say. I don't have proper controls, all that jazz, but this is just something I'm doing for fun. So I just want to get that little disclaimer out. And I think despite not having these proper controls, there's still a ton of credibility to what I'm trying to discuss here and have observed with these Ackies. So I don't really discount that. I don't think we shouldn't discourage people from experimenting just because they didn't set up a proper study, you know what I'm saying? I still think there's major takeaways from that. So, continuing. The results of this experimentation really did not change the behavior of the Ackies. And I've done periods where I had them at much lower temperatures consistently. They still went to the bathroom pretty much the same. They still basked the same amount of time pretty much. Nothing really changed, and I think that shows that they have a capability possibly of adjusting to the temperature they're around and being able to regulate their body to that temperature. Now, without observing much of a difference between the Ackies with these different experimentations with temperature ranges and keeping some at a really low temperature range for a period and just fluctuating them in general and seeing how they still stayed pretty much the same in their behavior, I wanted to try the same with humidity because that's always been a big debate with Ackies. So as you will see, I have the humidity levels at all different levels between these different Ackie enclosures. This is actually another phase of this experiment I just started doing, having them all at different levels consistently and seeing how they're going to react. But what I did is actually have them all super, super low compared to what I usually have them at. Usually their range is mid-60s to mid-70s when it's been sitting for a while. You know, obviously when you first dump in some moisture, it's going to be a little bit higher. But what I wanted to do is see how they would all be if I kept them between 40% and 50%. Unsurprisingly, their behavior really didn't change all that much, except in one very interesting aspect. When I lowered them to about 40 to 50% compared to their usual 65 to 70%, they spent a lot more time burrowed. And I think that lends to the idea that substrate humidity is what's key with these guys. And thinking about their natural habitat, that's pretty much how they live. They get most of their substrate, oh my god, they get most of their humidity requirements through their substrate, and that's how they shed and do stuff out in the outback, because on a lot of the outback there's not a lot of rain and it's very dry on the surface, and they rely on these high humidity crevices. Yeah, that's the word. Also, do note that this one is in the low 60s compared to LG's enclosure, which you just saw, which was in the low 70s. That's part of this next phase of experimentation. For this cutie over here, she will remain the same and actually be a control. I know I said I wasn't doing controls, but for this phase I will be. She will be remaining the same at the mid-50s humidity in the air, and I want her to continue to be burrowed and not coming out and experiencing that substrate humidity, while I expect the Hendrix and LG over there to be coming out a little bit more than what they used to, especially compared to Dell. Now, this idea of humidity in the substrate being much more important than humidity in the air for Ackies has been long theorized in the Ackie monitor community. It's nothing new, but we really haven't had any experimentation on it, so here's some right here. Additionally, I theorized a while ago that if this is true, this theory that we've been thinking with Ackies and substrate humidity and elements like that, then maybe adding more air humidity keeps them out more. So if you want your Ackie to be out and about, maybe you want to hike up that air humidity. And that's something I've been observing with this experimentation, like I said. So there is, possible actual evidence that that's true as well. I guess what you can ultimately say is not that substrate humidity is much more important than air humidity to these guys, but it's more reliable in their type of environment. The environment that experiences high temperatures throughout the year with not that much rainfall. So that humidity is going to stay put a little bit more in the substrate where it's collected and held a couple inches down
hidden away from the sun, but if that humidity was on the surface, which it actually is for a large portion of the years around the coastline of Australia where Ackies exist, then they're out and about more. And that's something I'd love to actually study in their environment in Australia, but I'm too poor. Anyway, putting my crazy scientist self to the side for a second, what do I recommend that you guys can do today for your Ackies and even a lot of your other reptiles? And that's to add fluctuation to their husbandry. I will show you exactly how you can do that. You can do that by having multiple basking bulbs. This allows for a more diverse, controllable basking area that you can have. You can turn one of these off. You can also put in different wattages like I have right there. That will make it much lower than if you have two of the same wattages. And like I said, let me run over to Dell's enclosure. You could turn one off and that will change the temperature right there. And that's how you can really control the overall temperature pretty much to a T in these enclosures, is having at least 2 basking bulbs. Even 3 would do really well, but I think you would do just fine on 2. And you could do the same for lighting. In all my enclosures, well, not all of them have 2 bulbs, I have 2 fixtures. These don't both have to be UVB. You can make it one an LED. Let's get inside here so I can show you. What I have for some, but want to have for all my enclosures, is to have one LED strip light and one UVB strip light. That's my Arcadia UVB right there. But I want to slide in an LED right there, and then I could kind of control the amount of light they get. Some days might be darker than others, just like out in their natural environment. I could also possibly simulate dawn and dusk by making it a little less lighter in the morning and at night before it gets dark again. And finally, why is this all important if having specific numbers has worked all these years and has produced really healthy reptiles? Well, I think it does one of 2 things, or both. One, it demotes stagnation and promotes experimentation, allowing you to evolve with your ever-changing reptile. And 2, this is just a theory, but I think it's good for your reptile's health because it allows them to adjust to more diverse environments, thus promoting their defenses against the ever-changing world around them. So anyway, guys, I'm overweight and out of shape and exhausted from all this moving around, but that's today's video, and I hope it was an interesting one. Let me know your thoughts about all this experimenting in the comments below. I'd appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe, guys. See ya.